This issue will head to Patagonia, known as the end of the world. It is the most desolate area known to humanity and is located in South America. It is one of the least populated regions globally, with only 5 people per square kilometer. It is a land of pristine wilderness, home to numerous wild animals such as cougars and wild boars. On the first day, 10 contestants remain. As contestant number 1, Jim, makes his entrance, the show officially begins. Jim, 37, is lucky to find bamboo right after landing. Bamboo is excellent for building shelters and easy to use for starting fires. Jim is an outdoor survival instructor and has always dreamed of surviving in the wild. He plans to showcase all his skills here. After building a simple shelter, Jim starts a fire using fluffy bark scraped from dry tree bark. He successfully lights a fire, but after spending one night, the shelter seems inadequate. On the second day, he decides to build a Native American teepee to better prepare for the upcoming winter storms and ensure a comfortable stay outdoors. It's essential to have an elevated bed in the wild to retain body heat. On the third day, as it starts to rain, Jim, unable to work at the campsite, begins to think irrationally. Just 3 days in, he immensely misses his family, whether from hunger or a momentary lapse in judgment. Embarrassingly, he uses a satellite phone to quit the competition. Thousands covet this opportunity, but Jim withdraws just 3 days into the wilderness, wasting this rare chance. Contestant number 1, Jim, is eliminated. Contestant 2, Britt, 40, does not rush to build a shelter upon landing, but starts exploring the surrounding area to find the most suitable spot, which prevents the need to relocate later. Britt, an accountant, loves wilderness survival, a stark contrast to his profession. He is fully committed to this challenge, even though it's unrelated to his main job. While searching for a spot, Britt finds a cow skeleton, a testament to the cougar's ability to kill prey twice its size, including the largest local animals like moose and elk. Realizing the danger, Britt quickly moves away to avoid leaving his scent on this hunting path. He then finds fresh wild boar droppings. Adult wild boars in Patagonia can weigh up to 400 pounds, but they are not as dangerous as cougars. Britt set up traps near wild boar feces, hoping to catch one. If successful, he wouldn't have to worry about food for at least a month. As night fell, Britt heard noises that seemed to come from the direction of his traps. He decided to investigate, taking his machete with him. Knowing that not only he could hear the sounds, but possibly nearby pumas as well, he ensured to carry his weapon. However, his trap was not triggered, which alarmed him. It was risky to follow noises at night in the wilderness. Contestant 3, Kaoli, 27, a tough woman, started by stripping off her clothes for a swim, but the cold water quickly drove her ashore. She felt this helped her connect with the wilderness. She joined the competition with a clear aim to win the $500,000 prize to buy the house she lives in. Growing up in the countryside, Kaoli is skilled in crafts. After setting up a temporary shelter, she made a chair. She prefers to enjoy nature first before focusing on survival. Treating the competition like a leisurely trip might make her the champion. Even a simple chair feels different in the wilderness. Knowing she isn't a hunter and can't catch wild boar, she started fishing early. Despite using just one fishing line, she caught a rainbow trout by the second day. Not hungry yet, she decided to save the fish head and innards for future bait. While examining the innards, she found a complete snail, a beetle, and 2 twigs. She used the beetle as bait and returned to her hammock to think about how to cook the fish. But soon, her fishing line tugged again, a sign of another catch. Contestant 4, Fowler, 36, landed in a challenging terrain, mostly uphill. Rain would cause water to flow towards his camp, making it damp. He needed to find a better location to build his shelter. The area was steep, like climbing mid-mountain. Near the top, he discovered a hunting path and wild boar feces. Fowler's family practices frugality. They hand-pump their water and only use electricity at night. His wife encouraged him to persevere through hardships. Winning the competition could significantly improve his family's life. A large pile of bones was found at the top of the mountain, seemingly entering the territory of a mountain lion. As night fell, while setting up fishing lines, a mountain lion hunting nearby was spotted. Contestant 5, Dave, 49, started off by taking a swim. Swimming is his regular activity every Saturday, and he relishes the sensation of merging with nature in the water. Dave, with a strong desire for outdoor life, has survived in the wilderness for up to 44 days alone. He is an outdoor survival instructor with over 20 years of experience. In this competition, he aims to break his personal record of wilderness survival. In the morning, he brushed his teeth with charcoal, which has adsorption capabilities to remove some bacteria. Using a primitive lure he crafted, he caught a rainbow trout. Contestant 6, Zach, 22, known for his youthful energy and strong food cravings, constructed an M-shaped fishing trap. Once fish enter through the top V-shaped opening, it is difficult for them to escape. To prevent birds from stealing the fish, he covered the trap with branches. After setting the trap, Zach planned to explore around his shelter. Nearby, he found feces mixed with bones, likely from a mountain lion, which frightened him. He returned to his shelter to cut some bamboo to reinforce his makeshift shelter. While navigating the slippery, root-covered jungle floor, Zach fell, cutting his left hand with the axe he was holding. Despite his frustration and continuous bleeding, he reluctantly called for emergency help. The medical team informed him that the wound, worsened by embedded wood fragments, required surgery. Disappointed, Zach, hoping to make a mark at 22, had to withdraw from the competition. Contestant 2, Britt, had hastily built his shelter without considering rainy weather, which nearly collapsed under the weight of the accumulated rainwater. He realized the need for more practical experience, especially since he is an accountant by profession. Meanwhile, Contestant 7, Megan, 41, recently got stuck in mud while exploring near a river. Megan is a biologist and also a forest ranger. His job has made him very independent. He has been working in forestry for nearly 20 years, in environments ranging from mountain peaks to swamps. His 2 decades of experience are the foundation of his confidence to compete in this contest. He possesses extensive knowledge of plants, knows which wild fruits are edible, and identifies toxic plants. Although in this season, his expertise allows him to easily gather wild fruits, protein is essential in the wild. Today, he plans to make a fishing trap. He will bend branches by the shore to create a trigger mechanism. Once a fish bites, the trap will be activated, and the springing branch will lift the fish out of the water. Contestant 8, Greg, 53, demonstrated a unique method of removing nose hair by inhaling sharply with a flame near his nostrils. Greg is a carpenter with 37 years of experience. Although 53 and divorced for 20 years, his daughter lives with him, contributing to their independence. Before he left, his daughter told him not to come back unless he wins, motivating him greatly to win the contest for unlimited financial security. While cooking his caught fish, noises near his shelter suggested a wild animal, likely attracted by the smell. However, for him, even a wild boar could be taken down with his bow and arrow. On day 9, 8 contestants remain. Contestant 3, Callie, starts her morning with fish soup. This lady, who made a strong impression by skinny dipping initially, plans to build a sturdy shelter today. In Patagonia, where fierce winds are common, a solid shelter is essential. She uses bamboo leaves and branches as the main materials for the 2 walls to effectively block the wind. While moving stones by the river, she notices snow accumulating on the mountain across, indicating the approach of winter. She needs to quickly build a fireplace in her shelter. Stones not only reflect, but also absorb and slowly release heat. In her hometown, wherever the fireplace is, that's where home is. After finishing her shelter, Callie enjoys her own dance performance, admiring the perfectly built fireplace, even making a clothes rack. Tonight, she will move into her new, warm little home. Contestant 2, Britt, caught a rainbow trout this morning. After processing the fish, its heart was still beating. He used the heart as bait, and the blood attracted more fish. He kept repeating the process, continuously catching fish, making him the envy of others. Indeed, the more remote the location, the richer the water resources. In less than half an hour, Britt caught 3 rainbow trout, and now needs to think of ways to preserve the food as meat spoils quickly in the wild. This puzzles me greatly. Why not dig a pit to channel water and keep the fish alive in it? Why must they be killed? If there's concern about birds eating the fish, covering it with branches would work. As night falls, the fish are frantically biting the hooks, non-stop. Britt still opts to process the fish and releases the processed fish back into the stream. I just don't understand why not keep them alive. Building a cage to trap the fish would preserve them longer. Contestant 7, Forest Ranger Megan, aged 41, found fresh wild boar feces 10 meters outside her shelter early in the morning. As a woman, she doesn't feel up to challenging a wild boar and decides to fortify her shelter for more reaction time. Contestant 9, Dan, 34, introduces himself as the laziest hunter, never moving unless necessary, always conserving his energy. His motto is to survive longer than anyone else, to the very end. As a professional hunter, he has more options for setting traps and gathering food. Today, he went to check his fishing line by the water, found a fish hooked but tangled with a stump underwater. To not waste hard-earned food, he decides to enter the water to retrieve the fish, quickly returning to shore to conserve heat, then cook and warm up back at his shelter. Content 4, Fowler, 36, lands in a steep and dangerous uphill terrain. Today, he plans to build a fence around his shelter to prevent slipping injuries, and also clears the ground leaves to reduce slipping during rain. To be wealthy, build roads first indeed proves wise. Contestant 10, Carleen, 28, has been building his shelter since landing. An architect by profession, he grew up fishing and learning survival skills. His shelter is filled with tree leaves and branches to prevent heat loss. However, the roof made of wet ground leaves, heavier than dry ones, fails and collapses. This represents Carleen's first mistake in the wilderness, requiring more physical effort to clear, adding to his challenge. On day 17, 8 contestants remain. Fowler, 36, brings a slingshot to the contest, hoping to catch small animals like birds and ducks, each providing about a pound of meat. Observing the water near his shelter, he notices many ducks, unreachable with a slingshot. He plans to build a duck trap today. Fowler is a shipbuilder skilled in handicrafts. He uses rubber bands for his launcher, builds a dock for his small boat, and pushes the trap into deep water. The boat's stern is rigged with fishing line for easy retrieval. On the boat, there are 2 stones tied with bait. Once a duck takes the bait, it drags the tied stones into the water, drowning the duck. Retrieving the fishing line then yields a wild drowned duck. That's the principle behind it, and Fowler hopes to demonstrate how effective this trap can be. However, in the afternoon, when he checks the shore, it's a rainbow trout, not a duck, triggered by the boat. This area's trout are desperately hungry. Trout head is also on his menu, so he sends the trap back into deep water. Contestant 5, Dave, 49, wakes up and eats his stored breakfast along with a fish. He spends the morning finishing the main gate of his perfect shelter, made of bamboo. Dave is very satisfied with his creation. Contestant 7, Megan, a 41-year-old biologist and forest ranger, shaves her legs today. It's worth mentioning that her expertise has kept her alive for 17 days. She won't give up and goes to check her fishing line. At the shore, the line tightens to her hook, indicating a fish bite. The line, however, is tangled around a stump underwater. Megan goes into the water to retrieve the hard-earned fish meat, but loses the fish due to inexperience and ends up completely wet. She spends the evening by the fire, struggling to warm up. As a female contestant, it feels particularly tough. After half a month without meat and the fish escaping while retrieving it underwater, it seems almost like fate when her trap catches a fresh fish the next day, which contains more protein than chicken. Megan finally enjoys her first meat meal in the competition. Contestant 8, Greg, 53, checks his wild boar trap today. The trap was triggered and the bait is gone, but no prey was captured. Reviewing the camera footage, he discovers a fox stole the bait at night, which infuriates him. He sets a new trap near the original, creating a path lined with branches leading to the bait placed at the end. Once an animal approaches to eat the bait, the thick stick set as a trap will fall. At night, the fox returns, but being extremely cautious, it steals the bait from the outside. Foxes are indeed clever. Contestant 2, Britt, aged 40, created a urinal inside his shelter to avoid going out at night. The biting cold during the seasons indeed makes one reluctant to venture outside. Possibly due to the recent drop in temperature, Britt hasn't caught any fish in a week. This morning, he will search the jungle for food and manages to find beefsteak mushrooms, his only decent food this week. By day 34, he still hasn't caught any fish, as if the previously abundant fish had vanished overnight. Today, he checks his traps laid along a rabbit path. To his surprise, the trap was triggered, but the rabbit had bitten through the fishing line and escaped. It seemed to mock him, suggesting all his efforts were in vain. Britt hadn't anticipated that rabbits could bite through the line, leaving him frustrated. Hungry and having wasted much energy on setting traps to no avail, he begins to question his suitability for the contest as an accountant. Hunger changes one's mindset, making one suspicious, irritable, and anxious. He misses home deeply and no longer wants to crawl into his dirty sleeping bag. He longs for home and a hearty dinner. Unable to endure the hunger, Britt decides to withdraw from the competition. Patagonia, for him, was a beautiful prison without a stable food supply. Contestant 2, the accountant Britt, is eliminated. In the wilderness, can you create your own paradise and face the challenges head-on? By day 35, only 7 contestants remain. Contestant 4, Fowler, enjoys the fish soup caught from his boat last night. He notices the snow slowly creeping down the opposite mountain and hurries to finish building his cabin to prepare for winter. His cabin, a week's masterpiece, is still half finished, with bamboo used on the exterior for better wind protection. While collecting bamboo, Fowler finds fresh wild boar tracks. He plans to set several traps, knowing that catching a wild boar would make his wilderness journey easier to win. The first trap, a primitive pitfall with spikes at the bottom filled with sharpened bamboo, is covered with branches and loose soil on top. He strategically places it on a path with a tricky visual layout, using sharpened bamboo sticks below and wrapped with rubber bands for a quick and forceful strike. Fish guts are placed underneath as bait. When the bait is pulled, the bamboo will spring up, aiming for the boar's head. The surrounding bamboo circle ensures the boar can only approach from one direction, increasing the trap's chance of success. After setting the trap, Fowler returns to building his cabin, exhausting most of his energy. Contestant 8, Greg, after a battle of wits with a fox on the mountain, came up short. He needed to find easier-to-obtain food. Greg set his sights on the river's mouth across the shore. He needed to build a boat to get there and try his luck at fishing. He found some wood on shore and constructed a simple raft. Although rudimentary, it successfully got him across. He began fishing and luckily caught a rainbow trout, justifying the energy spent on building the raft. Contestant 10, Carline, has completed her wooden cabin. Today, to prepare for the approaching winter, she began collecting dry wood. In the evening, near her shelter, either a mountain lion or a fox was closely watching her. Fortunately, it left after a short while. Contestant 5, Dave, woke up feeling depressed this morning. He was emaciated, having not caught any fish for a long time. As a 20-year outdoor instructor, he knew that the onset of ice meant fish would move to deeper waters, decreasing his chances of catching any. The hardest part was the lack of wildlife signs around his shelter, except for rats. In Patagonia, rats can carry the hantavirus, a respiratory disease with a 40% mortality rate. The production team had warned contestants not to eat rodents. This made gathering food even more challenging. Today, Dave decided to abandon his previous bait and made a fly fishing hook. After an afternoon of casting and retrieving, he finally caught a fish. He swallowed the roe directly, not wasting the hard-earned protein. Contestant 9, Dan, our dog brother Hunter, has been conserving energy lately by rarely leaving his shelter, doing nothing but fishing and sleeping. He believes he can last until the end. Contestant 3, Kaylee, planned to build a sweat lodge today. In his philosophy, it's crucial to do things that make one happy in the wilderness to avoid excessive emotional distress from missing family. He laid soft moss outside the sweat lodge. At night, he moved heated stones inside and began to enjoy the steaming. In the morning, refreshed, he jokingly made a satellite phone call, a tight moment for viewers, but clearly he was not easily defeated. Day 45.7 contestants remaining. Contestant 3, Kaylee, started the day by washing his socks and boiling them to disinfect after being bitten by a spider last night. Unsure if it was poisonous, he searched for herbs and found plantain and pine cones. He crushed these and applied the paste to the wound as an antibacterial salve to prevent further infection. In the wilderness, Callie relies on himself. The next day, his wound was still swollen, but he remained optimistic and didn't feel poisoned. Today he decided to make a musical instrument, recalling Lucas from Season 1, who had crafted a small guitar but left the show shortly after completing it. By nightfall, Kaylee felt dizzy and nauseous as the spider's toxin seemed to spread. He chose to trust his body to fight it, staying awake all night, embracing nature, and hoping for recovery. Contestant 5, Dave, has been successful with the fly fishing hook he made and continues to catch rainbow trout, although unfortunately only male fish without roe. He doesn't waste the milt, known as shirako in Japan, a delicacy. With winter approaching and fish moving to deeper waters, he plans to build a fish drying rack and smoke the fish to prevent hunger in the coming months. Smoked fish can last up to 2 months. Contestant 8, Greg, spends a lot of energy collecting dry wood daily due to his shelter being near the water. He would have moved to a more wood-abundant area if not for the convenience of fishing. Today, while checking his net, he found a fish caught by its tail. Attempting to retrieve it, Greg slipped into the water, wetting his clothes. With winter approaching, he needs to warm up quickly and has decided to move to a better location for wood gathering. Realizing that fire is his salvation in the wilderness, he collects charcoal and moves to a new shelter where wood is plentiful. Contestant 9, Dan, calculates his calorie consumption daily, maintaining a routine of sleeping and fishing, which gives him too much idle time to miss his family. Without other plans, he struggles with the emotional conflict of activity versus energy conservation, finding it torturous as inactivity makes him homesick, but physical activity drains his strength. Finally, after several days, his rescue team arrived. With tears in his eyes, he could no longer contain his longing for his family. He was ready to leave this dreadful place and go home, as he felt unsatisfied in the wilderness. Contestant 9, Dan's journey has come to an end. Contestant 10, Carlene, tried fishing all day with a rod she made herself. She caught her first fish just as night was approaching, which brought her to tears. She wants to win the competition and be the first female winner on the show, aiming to be a role model for others. On day 51, Contestant 8, Greg, fell into the water the previous day. Even after moving to a new shelter with plenty of firewood, his body temperature did not recover, and he spent a sleepless night in wet clothes, experiencing nausea, dizziness, and even hallucinations. Greg developed hypothermia, and despite spending the entire night by the fire, his wet clothes did not dry. Afraid that removing his clothes would cause his body temperature to drop faster, he reluctantly called for rescue. Regretting not taking off his wet clothes earlier, he was disappointed in himself, but knew life was the most precious thing. Sadly, Greg withdrew from the competition. Now, there are 5 contestants left. Contestant 3, Kaylee, discovered a Chilean recluse spider near the camp, suspecting it was the source of his painful bite. This venomous spider not only leaves deep scars that are hard to heal, but Kaylee is dismayed as his physical condition gradually worsens, despite applying herbal remedies nightly. The infection persists. Contestant 4, Fowler, completed his shelter made primarily of bamboo, a material originally used in Chinese architecture. Today, he also constructed a bamboo bird trap in the shape of a pyramid, with bait tied at the top. Upon a bird touching the bait, the pyramid would collapse, trapping it. After returning to his shelter, Fowler made a 9-tooth rake to clear away dead leaves and prevent poisonous insects from reaching his bird trap. When he returned, the trap had been triggered, capturing a bird. After quickly killing the bird and plucking its feathers, Fowler prepared to make soup. Though the meat was scant, the broth was delicious and memorable. Contestant 7, Megan, 41, notices a fox wandering outside her shelter at night. As a forestry biologist, she is aware that food sources are dwindling due to the winter. Previously, she would never consider eating a carnivorous animal, but now, driven by hunger, she not only wants to eat the fox, but also skin it. Megan sets several traps, but the fox merely circles her shelter at night without approaching the traps. This worries Megan about potential bites, as foxes are common carriers of rabies, and those infected can be highly aggressive. On day 59, 5 contestants remain. Contestant 3, Callie, shows incredible resilience as her venomous spider bite from day 45 begins to heal after a fortnight of suffering. Despite the severe pain and the threat of 3 puncture wounds on her leg, she never considered quitting. Her improving condition further motivates her. Contestant 10, Carlene, spots a deer outside her shelter in the morning, but fails to seize the opportunity. The heavy snow raises questions of beauty versus desolation. By day 72, 5 contestants are still in the running. Contestant 4, Fowler, wakes to find snow outside his shelter and builds a snowman to mark the first snowfall. As the snow clears by afternoon, he prepares for winter by gathering more wood. Despite surviving over 2 months in the wild, He remains determined to win the prize money to improve his family's life. Contestant 5, Dave, also experiences the snow and shouts joyously, finding delight in the wintry scene. However, after 72 days, having lost 40 pounds, Dave craves fatty meats. His physical strength has waned to the point where he can no longer draw his traditional bow, which requires 60 pounds of force. Regretting not planning his diet better when he could still catch fish, Dave feels despondent. Unable to work and with winter making food scarce, his situation is dire. Contestant 7, Megan, finds fishing challenging due to the fish migrating to deeper waters with the onset of winter. Her fishing gear is less effective now. Since catching fish became difficult, she shifted her focus to catching birds. She crafted a bird trap using a small reed frame with berries as bait. As a biologist, her expertise is a significant advantage, proven by her consistent gathering of berries and wild vegetables since the start. Contestant 3, Callie, is overjoyed by today's heavy snow, feeling as if she's in a fairy tale and likening herself to a snow sprite. Known as the Lady of Luck, she is the only one who still catches fish by the shore in winter. At night, unable to contain her joy, Kaylee sings aloud. Each remaining contestant is striving for their dreams. After enduring an injury, Kaylee feels as if she has unblocked her energy channels. By morning, she announces her decision to withdraw from the competition. For Kaylee, this journey was initially about winning to buy land and build a house for herself. However, after recovering from her injury, she realized she was too focused on material goals, neglecting other aspects of life. She wants to break free from seeing herself merely as a money-making machine and live a life true to herself. This wilderness journey has been transformative, opening new doors for her future. On day 73, with Kaylee's exit, only 4 contestants remain. Contestant 4, Fowler, plans to go down to his former shelter by the foothill to fish before the water freezes, hoping to stock up on food. Today, Megan goes to the shore where her air trap, surprisingly, catches a fish. After handling a redfish, another fish bites almost immediately. It seems luck is on her side as she catches her 3rd fish of the day by the afternoon, marking a significant change since she hadn't caught any fish for a whole month. Today, the production crew will conduct a medical checkup. Megan, who has lost 20 pounds since arriving on the island, which is about 18 kilograms over 2.5 months, doesn't seem too troubled by it. As a biologist, she has had a steady supply of berries and wild vegetables. Despite her weight loss, Megan is happy and feels well enough to continue competing. To celebrate passing the medical checkup, she makes herself a hammock and enjoys gathering edible fungi and berries before sunset. Contestant 5, Dave, appears gaunt, with just skin and bones, and is in a low spirit. Weak and unable to engage in strenuous activity, he attempted fishing by the water today but had no luck due to the winter. After slipping and falling while preparing to return to his shelter, he realizes his physical condition is deteriorating. The smoked fish he had stored for emergencies now needs to be consumed more due to his condition. The afternoon's medical checkup alarmed the crew as Dave had lost 42 pounds, about 38 kilograms over the months, nearly 1/3 of his original weight. His blood pressure is below normal, and when informed that he needed to be evacuated for health reasons, Dave was devastated. Despite his careful planning and ample food supply, including 32 pieces of smoked fish, the crew explained that he was at risk of organ failure and could not be guaranteed safety if an incident occurred. His condition required more than just smoked fish, needing substantial carbohydrates and vitamins for recovery. Dave became the only contestant eliminated despite having plenty of food because he rationed too much, fearing difficulty in fishing during winter. Disheartened, he regretted hoarding food, unsure of how to explain to his family the reason behind his elimination. However, his determination and planning are commendable traits. Contestant number 10, Carlene, plans to make a wooden drum today. She found animal hide on the 2nd day of the competition, and with nothing else pressing today and to distract herself from missing her family, she finished constructing her first musical instrument in the wilderness by evening. Today marks day 76, with only 3 contestants remaining. Contestant number 4, Fowler, has not caught any fish in recent days as the water levels have risen since his last successful fishing. Hunger forces him to dig for roots near his shelter, a relentless challenge both mentally and physically. Despite the hardship, Fowler is determined to win the competition for his wife and children to improve their lives. By day 78, 3 contestants are left. The production crew's boat heads towards the Patagonian competition area, indicating another contestant has opted out. The camera shifts to contestant number 7, Megan, who feels she has pushed herself to her limits. Realizing she can no longer continue, she desires to return to her family. Although not winning the $500,000 prize, she believes her family will be proud of her efforts and is not disheartened by her decision to leave. Megan's journey ends on day 78. By day 86, only 2 remain. Fowler, nearly 3 months away from home, feels his body weakening daily. Despite setting fishing traps and using his boat, catching fish in the deep waters of winter relies purely on luck. As the competition nears its end, medical checks become more frequent. Fowler has lost 64 kilograms, but still weighs around 150 kilograms, showing the extreme preparations contestants make to endure the wilderness. Contestant number 10, Carlene, now as thin as lightning, fantasizes about high-fat foods every night, finding herself half-satiated just by swallowing her saliva. Today, the production team conducted a medical checkup focused primarily on vital organs to assess the contestants' health and determine if they can continue in the competition. Carlene now weighs 46 kilograms, having lost 20.5 kilograms since arriving in Patagonia. This weight loss has brought her to a critical point. As a woman, her baseline weight was already much lower than her male counterparts. After discussions, the team decided to remove Carlene from the competition as her body mass index, BMI, is now below average. Continuing could likely lead to permanent damage to her digestive and nervous systems. She is aware of her body's fragility, but this outcome is not what she desired. She has endured much for the chance to win the prize money to buy land for her family and secure a carefree future for her children. All these dreams are now gone. By day 87, only 1 contestant remains, contestant number 4, Fowler. His hardships are unknown to us, but losing 64 kilograms in 3 months is not something many can achieve. As the production team arrives again, Fowler begins to worry that his stats may be below average and that they might take him away. Now resembling a frail old man, he repeatedly insists that he can keep going and that he is physically fine. In a vulnerable moment, as the camera rolls, his wife appears behind him and informs Fowler that he has won. He is the last contestant standing,